Jake Morrison had been watching the stars for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The captain sat in his command chair aboard the deep space research vessel Explorer, staring at the sensor readings that made no sense. 3. Massive objects had appeared at the edge of the solar system without any warning. They were bigger than anything humans had ever built, and they moved through space like they owned it. "Captain, I'm getting strange readings from Earth," said his communications officer, Lucy Park. Her voice was tight with worry. "Something's happening down there." Jake leaned forward. The objects on his screen looked like giant black teardrops, smooth and dark against the stars. They had no visible engines, no lights, nothing that looked familiar. But they were moving toward Earth with clear purpose. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," Jake ordered, "and keep scanning those ships. I want to know everything about them." Down on Earth, Dr. Lisa Carter was having the strangest day of her career. The marine biologist had been studying great white sharks off the California coast for 10 years. She knew these waters better than anyone. But today, the ocean was acting wrong. "Where are they?" she whispered, looking down into the blue water from her research boat. "The sharks should be here. Yesterday there had been dozens of them. Today there was nothing. Not just no sharks, but no fish at all. The ocean was empty." Her radio crackled to life. "Dr. Carter, this is Coast Guard Station Point Reyes. We're getting reports of missing marine life all along the coast. Can you confirm?" Lisa grabbed the radio. "Confirmed. The water here is completely empty. It's like everything just vanished." Overnight, similar reports were coming in from around the world. In Africa, wildlife photographer Ben Hughes was watching something impossible happen in the Serengeti. He had been following a pride of lions when the sky suddenly filled with blue light. "What the hell is that?" Ben muttered, raising his camera. The light was coming down from above like a massive spotlight, but it wasn't just light. It was doing something to the animals. The lions stopped moving and looked up at the sky. Then, slowly, they began to rise off the ground. Not jumping, not flying, but floating upward as if gravity had stopped working. Ben watched in shock as the entire pride disappeared into the blue light, pulled up toward something he couldn't see. He spun around and saw more beams of light across the savannah, elephants, zebras, giraffes, all floating upward into the sky. Within minutes, the vast grassland that had been full of life was completely empty. "This can't be real," Ben said. But his camera was recording everything. The same thing was happening, everywhere. In the Amazon rainforest, jaguars and anacondas were being pulled into the sky by columns of blue light. In the Arctic, polar bears and seals vanished from the ice. In Australia, crocodiles disappeared from rivers that had held them. For millions of years, the aliens worked with cold efficiency. Their ships, which humans would later learn belonged to the Zephyrian Empire, had been doing this for thousands of years. They would find a planet with interesting life forms, catalog every species, and take what they wanted. Earth was just another stop on their endless collection route. Captain Jake Morrison watched it all happen from space, helpless to stop it. The alien ships had positioned themselves around Earth like they were surrounding prey. Beams of energy reached down from the ships to the planet below, and Jake's sensors showed massive amounts of biological matter being transported upward. "They're taking everything," Lucy reported, her voice barely steady. "Every large animal on the planet is being collected." "Can we stop them?" Jake asked. "Sir, their ships are 20 times bigger than ours, and we don't even have weapons that could scratch them." Jake watched the alien harvest continue for 3 days. The creatures of Earth were pulled up into the sky by the millions. Lions, tigers, bears, sharks, whales, wolves, eagles, everything that had made Earth's wilderness wild was being stolen. But the aliens were careful about what they took. They ignored farm animals like cows and sheep. They left behind pets like dogs and cats, though they took all the wild wolves and big cats. Most importantly, they completely ignored humans. To the Zephyrians, humans were just another primitive species, barely worth noticing. They had seen thousands of worlds with creatures like humans, species that built simple tools and lived in groups but hadn't yet reached the stars. Such species were never dangerous, never worth the trouble of collecting. This was their first mistake. On the fourth day, the alien ships finished their work and prepared to leave. Earth's oceans were empty of whales and sharks. Its forests had no bears or big cats. The skies held no eagles or hawks. The Zephyrians had taken over 90% of Earth's large predators and left behind a planet that felt broken and quiet. Dr. Lisa Carter stood on her research boat, looking out at an ocean that felt dead. Somewhere far above, in the alien ships, were all the creatures she had spent her life studying. The great whites, the orcas, the giant squids, everything that made the ocean alive was gone. "Will we ever see them again?" asked her research assistant, Tom Brady. Lisa didn't answer because she didn't know. How do you fight beings who can steal entire species from your planet? How do you get back what they've taken when their ships can cross space faster than light? But as she watched the alien ships prepare to leave, Lisa felt something she hadn't expected. Not just sadness or fear, but anger. Cold, calculating anger. The kind of anger that doesn't go away but sits quietly and plans. The Zephyrians had made a second mistake. They thought they understood Earth's creatures because they had studied thousands of other worlds. But Earth was different. On other planets, the intelligent species had evolved separately from the predators. They competed with them, feared them, or avoided them. Only on Earth had an intelligent species learned to work with predators. Only humans had looked at wolves and said, "Let's hunt together." Only humans had seen the power of sharks and thought, "Let's learn from them." Only humans had watched eagles fly and decided, "We'll find a way to join them in the sky." The aliens had taken Earth's predators, but they had left behind the one species that had spent 10,000 years learning to think like every predator on the planet. They had left behind the species that had turned predation into science, hunting into art, and survival into a way of life that could adapt to anything. As the alien ships disappeared into space, carrying Earth's wildlife to distant stars, they left behind 8 billion humans who had just learned that their planet was not alone in the universe. 8 billion humans who had just watched strangers steal their world's most magnificent creatures. The Zephyrians thought they had completed a routine collection mission. They had no idea they had just declared war on the only species in the galaxy that had made every other predator on their world into family. They had no idea that humans didn't just study predators or fear them or admire them. Humans became them. And now, for the first time in human history, the entire species had the same target for their predatory instincts, the same prey to hunt down, the same enemy to find, track, and destroy. The hunt was about to begin, and the Zephyrians had no idea what was coming for them. 6 months had passed since the Great Harvest, and Collection Station Omega-7 was supposed to be running smoothly. The massive facility floated in the darkness of the Kepler 4M42 system, home to thousands of creatures from dozens of worlds. For Station Commander Veltar, it should have been just another routine assignment. But something was very wrong. "Commander, we have another incident in Section 7, reported his security chief, Krathmon. The tall, gray-skinned Zephyrian looked nervous, which was unusual for his species. 3 more Earth specimens found dead. Veltar studied the report on his screen. The creatures had been killed with precision, their throats cut cleanly. But the security cameras showed nothing. Empty corridors, sealed containment units, no signs of how anyone could have gotten inside. "This is the 15th incident this month," Veltar said. "What does the medical team say?" "Dr. Yextal believes the kills are too clean for animal attacks. Someone with advanced knowledge of anatomy is doing this." Veltar felt a chill run through his body. The Zephyrians had been collecting specimens for 3,000 years. Nothing like this had ever happened before. The creatures they collected were always passive, confused by their new environment, easy to control. Deep in the lower levels of the station, Dr. Amanda Price moved through the maintenance tunnels with the silence of a ghost. The former Army Ranger had been taken during the harvest while studying wolf behavior in Montana. Unlike the animals around her, she had not spent the last 6 months being passive. Amanda had escaped from her holding cell within 3 days of arrival. The Zephyrians had built their prison for animals, not for humans who could think, plan, and adapt. She had studied the station's layout, learned the guard rotations, and discovered something important about her captors. The Zephyrians. were prey animals. They had evolved from creatures that ran from predators, not creatures that hunted them. Their minds couldn't understand the concept of stalking, ambush, or tactical killing. They saw death as something that happened randomly, not something that could be planned and executed with purpose. Amanda had found others. Rick Patterson, a former Navy SEAL, had been captured while diving with great whites in South Africa. Maya Rodriguez, a wilderness guide from Alaska, had been taken along with a pack of wolves she had been tracking. Tony Clark, a combat medic, had been studying grizzly bears in Yellowstone when the aliens came. They were all soldiers now, fighting a war in the heart of enemy territory. The security system has blind spots, Amanda whispered into her makeshift radio. She was speaking to Rick, who was positioned 3 levels above her. They never designed this place thinking something might hunt them. Copy that. Rick's voice crackled back. I've got eyes on the main control room, 2 guards, same pattern as always. They're completely predictable. This was another advantage the humans had discovered. The Zephyrians followed rigid patterns, because that's how herd animals survived. They did the same things at the same times every day. For prey animals, predictability meant safety. For predators, predictability meant easy targets. Maya had made the most important discovery of all. The Earth animals weren't just sitting quietly in their cages. They were watching, learning, waiting. The wolves knew her scent, recognized her as pack. The big cats had accepted her presence as another hunter. Even the sharks in their massive water tanks had learned to respond to her signals. They remember. Maya had told the others during one of their secret meetings. They remember Earth, they remember hunting, and they remember us. They're just waiting for the right moment. That moment was coming soon. Tony Clark had been studying the station's life support systems. As a medic, he understood how bodies worked, but he was learning how the station worked too. The Zephyrians had built their facility like a giant terrarium, with careful climate control for different species. But they had made the systems too complex, with too many ways they could be disrupted. I can flood the lower levels, Tony reported. The aquatic tanks can be connected to the main water system. If we release the sharks at the right time, they'll have the run of half the station, Amanda finished. Do it. The humans had spent months planning, but they weren't the only ones preparing. In the large predator containment area, a massive grizzly bear named Bruno had been watching. The patterns, too. The bear had been captured in Alaska, and he had not forgotten the scent of the humans who used to study him. When Maya finally made contact, Bruno was ready. The wolves were the easiest to coordinate with. They had been working with humans for thousands of years, and that partnership didn't disappear just because they were in space. Maya used hand signals and body language to communicate with the pack leader, a massive gray wolf named Storm. The Moso message was simple: wait for the signal, then hunt. The big cats were more independent, but they understood the concept of cooperation when it served their interests. The tigers, lions, and leopards had been watching the Zephyrian guards for months. They knew which ones were afraid, which ones were careless, and which ones would be easiest to take down. Even the birds were involved. The eagles and hawks had been observing the station's communication systems, learning which cables carried important signals. When the time came, they would know exactly what to destroy. Commander Veltar was beginning to understand that his station was in serious danger, but he still didn't grasp the full scope of the threat. He increased security patrols and added more cameras, but he was thinking like prey. He was trying to hide from the danger instead of confronting it. "Sir, we're detecting unusual behavior in the Earth specimens," reported his chief scientist, Dr. Mortex. "They're showing signs of coordination that shouldn't be possible." "What do you mean?" "The wolves are howling in patterns. The big cats are pacing in synchronized movements. Even the aquatic specimens are showing unusual activity. It's almost like they're communicating with each other." Veltar studied the data. The patterns were subtle, but they were there. The Earth creatures were acting like they were preparing for something. But that was impossible. Animals couldn't plan complex operations. They couldn't coordinate across species. They couldn't. An alarm began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors, as the emergency system activated. Veltar rushed to his command center where his staff was staring at their screens in shock. "Report," he demanded. "Sir, we have massive containment breaches throughout the facility," Krathmon said, his voice shaking. "The Earth specimens are escaping, but this isn't random. They're moving in coordinated groups like they're following a plan." On the security screens, Veltar watched something that his species had never seen before: humans and animals working together in perfect harmony. Amanda Price moved through the corridors with a pack of wolves at her side. Rick Patterson advanced with tigers flanking him like a military unit. Maya Rodriguez rode on the back of a grizzly bear while eagles circled overhead. The humans weren't just escaping, they were hunting. And for the first time in Zephyrian history, they were the prey. The first shark broke through the water recycling center like a missile made of teeth and rage. Chief Engineer Krathvan had been checking the filtration systems when 20 feet of great white shark came bursting through the main pipeline, bringing half the ocean with it. Krathvan barely had time to scream before the shark's jaws clamped down on his leg. But this wasn't random animal behavior. The shark had been guided here, led through the station's water systems by someone who knew exactly where it would do the most damage. Amanda Price watched from the maintenance tunnel above as water began flooding the engineering section. The sharks hadn't just escaped their tanks. They had been strategically placed throughout the station's water network, turning every pipe and conduit into a hunting ground. "Phase 1 complete," she whispered into her radio. "The lower levels are flooded. Rick, are you in position?" "Copy that," Rick Patterson's voice came back. "The cats are ready to move." 3 levels above, Rick crouched in the shadows with 5 tigers surrounding him. The massive predators waited silently, their yellow eyes fixed on the corridor ahead. They had been watching the Zephyrian patrol routes for weeks, learning the timing, memorizing the patterns. The aliens thought in straight lines because that's how prey animals moved. They followed the same paths at the same times, always choosing the safest, most predictable routes. But predators thought in 3 dimensions, using shadows, elevation, and surprise. "Now," Rick whispered. The tigers moved like liquid death through the corridors. The first Zephyrian guard never saw them coming. One moment he was walking his normal patrol route. The next, he was on the ground with a tiger's paw on his chest. The aliens had no concept of ambush hunting, no understanding of how predators used patience and positioning to take down larger prey. Maya Rodriguez was having her own success in the northern section. The grizzly bear she rode had become her perfect partner. Its massive strength combined with her tactical knowledge. The bear understood her hand signals, responding to her guidance like they had been working together for years. "Easy, Bruno," she whispered as they approached another group of guards. "Wait for my signal." The Zephyrians saw them coming but couldn't process what they were witnessing. In their experience, large predators were solitary, unpredictable, driven only by hunger. They had never seen a bear working with a human, following commands, executing a plan. Bruno charged on Maya's signal, scattering the alien guards like pins, but instead of attacking randomly, the bear followed Maya's directions, herding the aliens toward a specific area where Rick's tigers were waiting. It was a coordinated hunt involving multiple species, something the Zephyrians had never encountered in 3,000 years of specimen collection. Tony Clark had reached the reptile containment area, and what he found there made his blood run cold. The Komodo dragons weren't just alive, they were thriving, and they had been watching everything. "Jesus," Tony muttered as he looked into the eyes of the largest dragon. There was intelligence there, cold calculation that reminded him of the most dangerous soldiers he had served with. These weren't mindless animals. They were apex predators that had been studying their captors for months. When Tony opened their containment unit, the dragons didn't rush out in confusion. They moved with purpose, heading directly for the command center. They had memorized the station layout, identified the most important targets, and planned their route of attack. The crocodiles were even worse. They had been lying motionless in their artificial swamp, looking like logs or rocks. But they had been listening, learning, waiting. When the gates opened, they moved through the station's lower levels like armored nightmares, using the flooded corridors as highways to their targets. Commander Veltar was beginning to understand that his station was facing something unprecedented. The reports coming in made no sense. Animals working together across species lines, predators following human commands, coordinated attacks that showed strategic thinking. "Sir, the Earth specimens aren't just escaping," reported his tactical officer Zefkor. "They're hunting us and they're winning." "That's impossible," Veltar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Animals can't plan military operations." "These can," Zefkor replied, pointing at his screen. "Look at this." The security footage showed Amanda Price moving through the station with a pack of wolves at her side. But she wasn't just running away from danger. She was moving toward specific targets, using the wolves as scouts and guards while she sabotaged critical systems. The wolves understood their role perfectly. They had been working with humans for thousands of years, reading body language and hand signals that no other species could interpret. When Amanda pointed, they moved. When she signaled danger, they protected her. When she marked a target, they attacked. "This is pack leader to all teams," Amanda spoke into her radio, using military terminology that the Zephyrians couldn't understand. "Primary objectives are complete. Moving to Phase 2. Phase 2 was about to show the aliens something even more terrifying than coordinated hunting. It was about to show them human creativity applied to warfare. Rick Patterson had found the station's artificial gravity generators. The massive machines created the fields that kept everything anchored to the floors and walls. But Rick had been trained in zero-gravity combat, and he knew how to turn weightlessness into a weapon. "Maya, when I shut down the gravity, the big cats are going to have an advantage," he radioed. "Cats can navigate in 3 dimensions better than the aliens can." "Copy that," Maya replied. "Bruno and I are ready." When the gravity died, chaos erupted throughout the station. The Zephyrians, evolved from ground-dwelling herd animals, became helpless in zero gravity. They flailed and spun, unable to orient themselves or move with purpose. But the big cats were different. Leopards and jaguars were already adapted for 3-dimensional hunting, comfortable moving through trees and rocky terrain where up and down meant nothing. In zero gravity, they became even more deadly, able to push off walls and ceilings to attack from any angle. The tigers learned quickly, using their powerful legs to launch themselves through the corridors like furry missiles. The lions worked in coordinated pride formations, surrounding groups of aliens and attacking from multiple directions simultaneously. Amanda watched the battle unfold from the command center, where she had been working to understand the station's computer systems. The aliens had made another critical mistake. They had built their technology for users who thought like prey animals, creatures that avoided risks and followed predictable patterns. But Amanda thought like a predator. She looked for weaknesses, found ways to exploit the system's design, and turned the station's own defenses against its creators. The security cameras became her eyes, the communication system became her voice, and the life support systems became her weapons. "All teams, this is Pack Leader," she announced. "We're not just escaping anymore, we're taking the station. These aliens thought they could steal our family and sell them like property. Time to show them what happens when you mess with Earth's pack." The Zephyrians were learning a lesson that would echo across the galaxy. They had encountered the one species that didn't just adapt to their environment, but remade it to suit their needs. The one species that could turn any situation into a hunting ground, any tool into a weapon, and any animal into an ally. Earth's apex predator was no longer hiding. It was hunting. And for the first time in their long history, the Zephyrians were the prey. War Marshal Thexnall had commanded Zephyrian battle fleets for over 2 centuries, but he had never received a distress call like this one. Collection Station Omega-7 wasn't just reporting a containment breach, they were reporting something impossible. "Specimens, hunting the collectors," he read from the emergency transmission. "Coordinated attacks across multiple species. Humans directing predator behavior. Station compromised. Request immediate military intervention." The War Marshal studied the report with growing disbelief. In 3,000 years of collection operations, nothing like this had ever happened. Specimens were supposed to be passive, confused, easily controlled. They weren't supposed to work. together, and they certainly weren't supposed to hunt their captors. Deploy Battlefleet Zerion, Thexnal ordered. 12 capital ships. If these creatures cannot be contained, they will be eliminated along with the entire station. But as his fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Thexnal had no idea that the humans on Omega-7 had been preparing for exactly this response. Amanda Price stood in the station's primary control room, surrounded by banks of alien computers that she was rapidly learning to understand. The Zephyrians had built their systems to be operated by creatures with limited spatial reasoning and simple thought patterns. For a human mind trained in military strategy, their technology was like a puzzle with most of the pieces already in place. Rick, Maya, Tony, get to the biolabs now, she commanded through the communication system. We're about to have company, and we need to be ready. Amanda had discovered something extraordinary about Zephyrian technology during her weeks of study. The biotransport beams that had stolen Earth's creatures weren't just simple matter transporters. They used quantum entanglement to maintain a connection between every collected specimen and its home world. Every wolf still carried quantum traces of the Yellowstone forests. Every shark maintained subspace links to Earth's oceans. Every eagle held resonance patterns connected to the skies they had been stolen from. The aliens had never realized this because they thought of creatures as objects to be collected, not as living beings with deep connections to their homes. But humans understood those connections. Humans had spent thousands of years forming emotional bonds with other species, learning to communicate across the barriers that separated different forms of life. And now Amanda was about to use that understanding to change everything. Tony, I need you to modify the biocontainment systems, she said as the combat medic entered the control room. Instead of holding creatures, we're going to amplify the quantum signatures that connect them to Earth. What will that do? Tony asked. It's going to send a message home, Amanda replied. Every howl, every roar, every call our animals make is going to be broadcast directly to Earth through quantum space. And when our people hear that call, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Tony understood. Humans didn't abandon their own. They never had, and they never would. Back on Earth, the quantum resonance pulse hit like a wave of pure emotion. In laboratories around the world, scientists detected the impossible signal. In military command centers, generals felt something they couldn't explain. In homes where families had lost beloved pets to the alien harvest, people suddenly looked up at the stars with a feeling that their animals were calling for help. Dr. Kevin Wu was working late in his laboratory at the United Nations Xenological Defense Initiative when the pulse reached him. The quantum physicist had been studying fragments of alien technology recovered from the harvest ships, trying to understand how their systems worked. The moment the resonance wave hit, every piece of Zephyrian tech in his lab began resonating with harmonic frequencies. But more than that, Wu felt something deep in his mind. Images of wolves running through forests, sharks swimming through vast oceans, eagles soaring over mountains, all calling, all reaching across the impossible distance of space toward home. General Hayes, Wu called his superior immediately. You need to get down here right now. Our people are alive and they're asking for help. General Patricia Hayes had been expecting this call ever since the harvest ended. The former Marine had spent 6 months preparing Earth's defenses, knowing that the aliens would return eventually. But she had also been preparing something else, humanity's first interstellar military force. How long until the fleet is ready? She asked her chief engineer, Colonel Ryan Foster. The ships are crude compared to alien technology, Foster replied, but they'll get us there. 47 vessels built from reverse-engineered alien components. We've got volunteer crews from every military in the world. And the special modifications? Foster smiled grimly. Every ship has biocontainment areas modified for Earth species. We're not just going to rescue our people, General. We're bringing our animals home. The human fleet that prepared to launch from Earth orbit looked nothing like the sleek Zephyrian vessels. The ships were rough, angular, built for function rather than beauty. But they had something the aliens had never seen. Before names that told a story, UES Grizzly, named for the bears stolen from Alaska. UES Apex, representing humanity's role as Earth's ultimate predator. UES Alpha, honoring the wolf packs that had been humanity's first partners. UES Predator, UES Hunter, UES Pack Leader. Every name a promise that Earth's apex predator was coming, to reclaim its own. Captain Kate Chen commanded the flagship UES Vengeance from the bridge that had been designed with one purpose, to coordinate multi-species combat operations. Her ship carried the most advanced quantum communication array humanity had ever built, capable of maintaining contact with every Earth creature across interstellar distances. All ships, this is Admiral Chen, she broadcast to the fleet. We're not going out there to negotiate or make peace, we're going hunting. Every creature stolen from our world, every human taken from their home, they're all coming back with us. The quantum pulse had done more than just call for help. It had awakened something in humanity that had been sleeping since the dawn of civilization. For the first time in human history, the entire species had the same target, the same enemy, the same prey to hunt down. Children who had lost pets to the harvest volunteered for the most dangerous missions. Elderly people who had spent their lives working with animals donated everything they owned to fund the rescue fleet. Scientists, soldiers, farmers, teachers, everyone united by the simple understanding that family doesn't abandon family. But the most important volunteers were the ones who understood animals best. Wildlife biologists, veterinarians, zookeepers, animal trainers. People who had spent their lives learning to communicate with other species, to understand their needs, to work alongside them as partners rather than masters. When the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, they carried more than just weapons and determination. They carried the collective knowledge of a species that had made every other predator on their world into family. They carried the wisdom of 10,000 years of interspecies cooperation, of hunting together, of protecting each other, of never leaving anyone behind. War Marshal Thexenel was about to learn that the Zephyrians had made a critical error in their assessment of Earth. They had seen humans as just another primitive species, not worth the effort of collection. They had failed to understand that humans weren't just another predator. Humans were the apex predator that had learned to make every other apex predator into pack, and when you threaten one member of a pack, you face them all. The hunt was about to become a war, and Earth's children were coming home. The moment the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, War Marshal Thexenel knew he was facing something unprecedented. 47 ships appeared on his sensors, crude but functional, crude by the species his people had dismissed as harmless primitives. "Sir, they're not running," reported his tactical officer, confusion clear in his voice. "They're forming attack formations." Thexenel studied the display. The human ships moved with patterns he had never seen before. Instead of the orderly formations that civilized species used, they scattered and regrouped like a pack of hunting animals. Some ships circled wide while others drove straight forward, creating a web of movement that seemed random but felt dangerously purposeful. "All ships, engage the primitives," Thexenel ordered. "Show them the power of the Zephyrian Empire." Captain Ryan Foster of the UES Apex watched the alien capital ships turn toward his fleet with grim satisfaction. The Zephyrians were doing exactly what he had hoped they would do. They were thinking like prey animals, trying to face the threat head-on with superior firepower. But humans had learned long ago that the biggest predator didn't always win. Sometimes the smartest predator did. "All ships, initiate wolf pack formation," Foster commanded. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy them, we're hurting them." The human fleet split into smaller groups, each one moving in a different direction. To the Zephyrians, it looked like the humans were retreating in panic. But Foster knew better. His ships were positioning themselves like wolves surrounding a herd of elk, cutting off escape routes and forcing their prey toward the killing ground. Inside Collection Station Omega-7, Amanda Price felt the vibrations of the battle through the station's hull. She had spent hours preparing for this moment, working with the freed Earth animals to set up the most ambitious rescue operation in human history. "All teams, this is it," she broadcast. "Phase 3 begins now." Throughout the station, humans and animals moved with coordinated precision, Maya Rodriguez rode her grizzly bear Bruno through the corridors, leading a pack of wolves toward the main power core. Rick Patterson advanced with his tigers, heading for the station's shield generators. Tony Clark moved through the flooded, lower levels with sharks and crocodiles, targeting the life support systems. But the most important mission belonged to the ravens and crows that had been ignored by the Zephyrians for months. The intelligent birds had been studying the station's communication networks, learning which cables carried the most important signals. Now they struck with surgical precision, severing fiber optic lines and disrupting command networks throughout the facility. Commander Veltar watched his control room fall into chaos as system after system went offline. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "These are just animals." "Sir, I think that's the problem," replied his science officer, Dr. Mortex. "We've been thinking of them as animals, but they're not acting like any animals we've ever seen. They're acting like soldiers." Outside the station, the space battle was reaching its climax. Admiral Kate Chen had positioned her flagship UES Vengeance at the center of the human formation, using its advanced quantum communication array to coordinate not just with her own fleet, but with every Earth creature in the system. "All ships, prepare for the resonance pulse," she commanded. "This is what we came here for." The quantum pulse that erupted from the human fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It connected every Earth creature across the system in a single, unified consciousness. Every wolf knew where every other wolf was. Every shark could sense the movement of every other shark. Every human could feel the heartbeat of every animal they had come to rescue. For one brief moment, Earth's scattered children became a single organism with one mind and one purpose: to hunt as one. War Marshal Thexnall felt the change immediately. His ships had been pursuing individual human vessels, but suddenly those vessels were no longer acting independently. They moved like parts of a single creature, coordinating their actions with impossible precision. "Sir, they're not just communicating," reported his sensor operator. "They're thinking together. It's like they share a single mind." The Zephyrian fleet found themselves caught in a trap that had been building for months. The humans had never intended to fight a conventional space battle. They had been herding the alien ships toward the station, where the real fight was waiting. Amanda Price activated the station's biotransport systems, but she had modified them in ways the Zephyrians had never imagined. Instead of capturing creatures, the systems now projected the quantum consciousness of every Earth animal directly into the Zephyrian ships. Suddenly, every alien vessel was filled with the presence of wolves, sharks, bears, and big cats. Not physically, but mentally. The Zephyrians, who had evolved as prey animals, found themselves experiencing the world through the senses of apex predators for the first time in their species' history. The psychological shock was devastating. Crew members collapsed as their minds were overwhelmed by the foreign thoughts of creatures that existed only to hunt and kill. The Zephyrians had no defense against this kind of mental assault because their species had never developed the ability to think like predators. "All ships retreat," Thexanol ordered. But it was too late. The human fleet had closed the trap completely. Every escape route was blocked by ships that moved with the coordination of a wolf pack and the ruthlessness of sharks. Captain Foster watched as the first Zephyrian vessel surrendered, its crew unable to function under the mental pressure of the predator consciousness. "Admiral Chen, the Grizzly is reporting successful boarding operations. The aliens are surrendering without a fight." "Copy that," Chen replied. "All ships begin rescue operations. Bring our family home." What followed was the most remarkable military operation in galactic history. Human boarding parties, accompanied by the freed Earth animals, systematically captured every Zephyrian vessel in the system. But they weren't conquering the ships. They were liberating them. Every transport beam was reversed. Every containment unit was opened. Every cage was unlocked. The creatures of Earth flowed back to the human ships like water, returning to the sea. Wolves reunited with their packs. Sharks swam in specially designed tanks. Bears found temporary homes alongside their human partners. The Zephyrians who survived the battle were left with a choice: surrender completely or face the full wrath of a species that had just demonstrated the ability to coordinate multi-species combat operations across interstellar distances. Most chose surrender. The quantum resonance pulse had done more than just win a single battle. It had permanently changed both humanity and Earth's animals. Children born after the rescue could communicate with animals in ways that seemed almost telepathic. Dogs understood complex instructions without training. Cats responded to human emotions with unprecedented empathy. Horses and riders moved as single beings. The Zephyrian Empire collapsed within 5 years. Their collection fleets hunted down by human-animal partnerships that could track them across any distance. Other alien civilizations learned to approach the Sol system with extreme caution, knowing that Earth was protected by something the galaxy had never seen before. Humanity had become the first species to achieve true symbiotic consciousness with their entire biosphere. They were no longer just the apex predator of one world. They had become the apex predator of known space, and every creature they had ever befriended was part of their pack. The aliens had been right about one thing. Earth was indeed home to the galaxy's most dangerous apex predator. They had just been looking at the wrong species. Humanity's true strength had never been their intelligence or their technology. It was their ability to make every other predator on their world into family. And nobody hunts more fiercely than family protecting family.